impact assessments, start to finish. We have impact assessment. What we're going to make basically is a chart. So you've got a chart. Your chart is going to have 4 basic headers ideally, but you could have more, you could have less. The first section is going to be your function, process, or application. So in this instance, we're going to call function for our first demonstration. Next is going to be your type of impacts. Now you can do up to these, you could do more, you could sort them differently. There's 3 main ones that I like to use. Those 3 are going to be financial impact. We're going to have operational impact. And then we're going to have reputational impact. You could call this money, ops, rep, whatever. Just that's the idea here. Okay, so you've got your 3 types of impacts and you've got your function. You then have to list the functions that you made. I'm going to put some various ones in here for an example, but you don't have to necessarily use these. You would use obviously the ones that you came up with, or if this is process, same idea, you would list the processes. So I'm going to put in good old sales, ops or operations. Let's put in admin. We'll put in finance. Let's put in IT because you're going to have an IT department. That's almost guaranteed. Marketing, what am I talking about? Yeah, because that's marketing. So we've got these 6 functions. What are the impacts of losing the function? Now you can think about this in terms of impacts per day. You can think about this in terms of impacts over a period of time. You can think about, I lose this, I lose X amount, whatever. You have to kind of figure out how you're going to view these impacts. For financial, usually this is going to be money over time or asset loss plus money or something over time. So if you can't sell, how much money are you not making because you can't sell? This is usually some sort of opportunity cost, or how much am I losing in potential? Let's say that you have a business where you're a retail company, you run a store, the store will do, so you do $50,000 to $100,000 a day. For the sake of argument, it's a pretty big store, but a larger bulk store will do that gross. So let's say that your sales is, we'll say 50. So we'll say it's 50,000 a day. So if you're down for a month, it's 50,000 times 30. If you're down for, a year, it's 50,000 times 365. But your financial impact for sales is that a day. Now you could have other sorts of impacts, but we'll say for the sake of argument, that's what that is. Now for ops, the financial impact of losing your operations. If you produce things, then you may be running, for example, an assembly line 365 days a year, and you may be limited by the amount of time you have to run machines to make stuff. So some organizations, if they lose their lines, if they can't produce, you're talking $1 million an hour. It can just depend, but organizations that are dependent on being able to produce stuff, what's the value in stuff you can't produce because you're not going to end up selling it, basically, is what that is. Now, keep in mind here, I'm focusing on my loss from ops. I'm not focusing on my loss from ops because I can't sell. This is the part where I don't want to go to a different section yet. Just what am I losing financially if I can't produce? For some organizations, this is going to be not applicable. It's going to be irrelevant. For other organizations, this will actually matter. We'll say for the sake of argument, this example, the stock of the store per day after 2 weeks because they have a warehouse or something. So we'll say this is also 50,000 per day after 2 weeks. Okay, so we'll say for the sake of argument, that's the way that works. Maybe the business thinks this way, maybe it doesn't, whatever, that's what it is for now, fine. Admin. How much money do you lose if you lose admin directly? For a lot of organizations, this is going to be not applicable. If this organization thinks that admin processes receipts, for example, so for example, if sales, makes you make the money, admin's processing the sales, then losing admin is also a failure point that would cause this. Normally, you would put all of your sales stuff in sales. You wouldn't put your admin stuff with there, but you could have an organization where everything is just has to be up or it just all fails. That's possible. But we'll say for the sake of argument that admin doesn't directly cause financial impact on its own when it goes down. For this example, other examples might be different. So we'll have not applicable. Finance. Now, your finance department in a lot of businesses or a lot of organizations is a department that helps you make money by making your money grow. You can have a direct loss due to lack of investment, lack of opportunity, lack of whatever from this. Your finance department could also be the department that is making sure that your bank accounts work. If that's the department that makes your bank accounts work, then things get really complicated. We'll say for this case that your finance department is doing investments and for whatever reason your business worries about this, fair enough. When you're doing this also, the way you might come up with these numbers is you might have an executive go talk to each of these departments and say, hey, tell me what your impacts are and come back to me. So these might actually be in different formats. You might get these in different formats. So the finance might say that we're losing 2% business value per month. So they might just say that 2% of what our business is worth, we're losing per month because we're not investing it into some sort of growth. Because reasons, like that might just show up, fine. You might have to these are different measurements now, kind of find a way to make those equal, but that's a problem for you later once you take this in. IT. So what is the financial impact of losing IT directly? If you have, once again, loss from IT because you can't sell, that's a sales problem, not an IT problem. The IT caused sales to get knocked out, but that's not something you're doing here. So it may be not applicable. You might not have a direct financial impact from losing IT. Marketing. If you don't market, how much do you lose in a day or in a certain amount of time from not being able to do X, Y, Z? Now, if you're the type of business that does online and in-person sales, for example, and the sales department is just your in-person presence and the marketing department runs your website, then this is also kind of a secondary sales function, but you've separated them. So you've said, my sales department is my front of the line people that do stuff. My marketing department is my website and my marketing. Okay, so then your loss from not making web sales is a marketing loss. That's fine. Let's say that you're doing 10,000 a day from your website. Okay, so that would be 10,000 per day from losing marketing. Okay, this is the general idea. You could also have an impact where, after not being around in the given market or not having a presence from advertisements and whatever for, a certain number of months, we notice a drop off in sales or we notice, X, Y, Z doesn't happen. That could also be marketing. Either way, come up with the ways that you lose money that are specific to the thing. We lose this, that means this doesn't happen. That's specific to it, and then add it in. If sales is down, you lose $50,000 a day, fine. If IT going down causes sales to go down, making me lose $50,000 a day, I don't suddenly lose $100,000. It's just down for another reason, whatever sales is down, right? It doesn't matter how it went down. It's down, this is what happened, okay? If admin makes me lose money because sales made me lose money, it's the same thing. You're doing the same thing constantly. You don't need to duplicate this. If there's something specific to the thing, then put that in. That's financial. Okay, operational. If this is down, what can't you do? So this isn't what am I losing in terms of money. This is what am I losing in terms of ability to do stuff. So if sales is down, I cannot sell in person. This impact assessment is going to help you better appreciate what the things do and how important they are. If you have job descriptions, if you have SOPs, standard operating procedures, and stuff like that for these given sort of departments, they may inform you what those departments do specifically. If that section, function, whatever, doesn't exist, then that stuff isn't happening. This is a long-winded way of saying a lot of this can be copy-paste if you know where you're copy and pasting from. So you can't sell in person. You may effectively lose in-person customer service. List the stuff that you lose. This could get fairly long depending on what is involved here, but this is the stuff you can't do anymore. For ops, you can't produce stuff. And you may have a list of specifically all the different stuff you can't produce. Traditionally, when I give an organization this sort of task to do, and then when they go to their various departments and bring it back, the ops list for this is usually massive, and then a few other departments I'm not going to call out right now will give me basically nothing. But I'm used to seeing an ops list here being fairly expansive. Well, if we can't operate, we can't do this, 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 that thing over there, this, this, this. Like, they can get pretty detailed. But in general, some form of I can't produce stuff, I can't do this thing, fill it in. Admin, same thing. What can't I do? I can't send emails, I guess. Send emails. I can't get people to read emails. I might lose, if HR, human resources, is built into admin, which it could be, I might lose health and safety. The whole function of that. I might enter compliance issues. So I might lose compliance. There's all sorts of things that could happen if I lose this. Okay, finance. If I don't have finance, I can't invest. I might not be able to use bank account. Whatever. What's the stuff you can't do if you don't have finance? IT. If I don't have IT, I can't breathe. Right? I can't do anything because my whole business is dependent on the darn computer. Right? So what doesn't work if you don't have IT? There might be a list. It might be everything. Fair enough. What is the operational effect of losing this? Now look, if I don't have IT, I can't use this computer. If I don't have IT, I can't do da-da-da-da-da. It's not if I don't have IT, I can't sell. It's specifically what's the thing I can't do. You may be able to do some of this stuff without IT. A lot of ops functions will require IT to keep a record of something, but maybe analog or independent. So there's some assembly lines, for example, that don't require IT, they require power. And they require IT to help them keep track of what they're doing, but they can just keep building and take notes if need be. They don't have to necessarily stop. So what do I lose? Do I lose tracking? What do I lose specifically if I lose IT? Okay. Marketing. What do I lose if I lose marketing? I might lose advertisements. We said that marketing was the website. So if I lose marketing, I might lose my website. Might lose my ability to sell not in person, right? This is all the kind of idea. This is probably not going to be done very quickly. This might take you, if you have all of the C-suite executives or all of the people who know how to run the company in the room together, you might be able to knock this out in under 10 minutes. But in general, if you're doing a longer plan, you're going back and forth with emails, this might take some time to get the whole list, and this might become a pretty big chart. But either way, it's basically a chart. Okay, reputational. Let's go through reputation. Let's figure out what we lose. If we can't sell, what is the effect on our reputation? What is the effect here? When you're looking at reputation, one thing that you might want to consider is what is happening in the minds of, we'd call it the stakeholder, primary stakeholder, but what's really going on in the minds of the public, the customer, the person that you are trying to keep the attention of. If you are a city fire department, then the reputation might be the jurisdiction that you are servicing. If you are a retailer, your reputation is probably your target demographic. Like, that's who we're talking about here. Think from their perspective what happens here. I lose sales. What does that do to my reputation? What does my customer start thinking? Well, they might find an alternate place to go. I might be losing market share. I might lose loyal customers, right? So we're looking at lose market share, which might have a financial impact, but this is kind of like the intangible idea of this is the thing I'm going to have to deal with. I'm less present in the market. I'm losing sales. I'm not always open. They find a competitor. They go to a competitor, right? That's the whole sort of idea. I lose my potential sales there. People think that, well, I mean, they're open. Why aren't you open? You should be able to figure it out. That whole idea. How does the customer feel? How does the people outside my organization feel if I cannot sell? What does that do? You can explore this quite a bit more. You can say this different ways, but that's the general idea. Ops, I can't operate. What does that do? What sort of impact does this have on other people reputationally? There's going to be some element of possibly it impacting people's confidence in my business, sure, but you may have an issue with suppliers unhappy. You may have some suppliers that are very mad because your assembly line has stopped, which means you're not ordering more parts, which means your suppliers go, I'm supposed to be making sales here. We're supposed to be delivering at this time, and now I don't. Now my business is backlogged. Why, like, what, WTF, like, what's going on here? If you've heard of supply chain failures before, this is kind of the issue here. One person who is the critical producer gets knocked out, and then the people that supply that producer go, I can't sell to my main client now. And the people that sell to those producers now get impacted because they have to freeze, and everything just kind of backlogs because this thing at the front of the line had a hiccup. If you're that person at the front of the line having that hiccup, everyone behind you starts getting angry. Reputational impact, you might have less favorable negotiations next time it comes up to negotiate the price for the inputs to build whatever you're building. This is the sort of issue we're talking about here. People like consistent, steady streams of things that they can rely on. You are being viewed as unreliable. Reputational impact, okay? Admin, look, you lose admin. If admin includes health and safety from more of an HR function, you may have reputational impact from confidence from employees. Want to watch your employees unionize and get really angry real fast and start going on strikes? Have people die because you have no health and safety. Watch how fast that happens. Watch how fast the police show up and then you start having real issues. Reputational impact of this business is a place you can go to work to die. Let's think about that for a second. Huge. That could have other impacts over here as well. You could be labeled as the type of organization that sacrifices the safety or the humanity of people in order to ship out more shoes or something. So, this can be an issue. Where does that come from? That comes from admin in this case. Bad worker practices that result in people being injured or killed or whatever. You are having a reputational issue because of the loss of this function, right? This was good before, suddenly you didn't have admin and someone got hurt, and people don't care the reason, they just care that it happened, and now you have to wear it. Oops. Finance. So we don't have finance. What's the reputational impact? Well, I'd like to think the reputational impact of this, depending on how this works, could be something like Shark Tank, but in the example I'm going to give here, this would be something like appear weak. Appear weak or vulnerable. A competitor starts thinking that you are something that can be taken advantage of. That is a reputational impact. What is the financial impact of that? Who knows? But you're going to have to deal with the fact that you have this reputation now, and people are viewing you as weak in the business world, potentially. There's other potential impacts here. I'm giving an example. This may or may not apply to you. I'm just throwing this out there. It's something I've seen before. It's often called something else. But in effect, very often, a client will come up with reputations and it'll be some version of, well, if we lose finance, we just appear weak. They'll make it a paragraph. It's appearing weak. IT. You lose IT. You can't do whatever it is you're doing. What does that look like reputationally? Now, Generally speaking, this is going to be a more internal thing because of how we've constructed this. But if you're more outwardly facing, this could be more of an, you appear backwards. You appear like you're not in the modern age. If you have a larger customer base that likes to be on their phones and likes to be tech involved, or they're very big tech enthusiasts, and you don't have that, you appear dated. You appear not in with what they're doing. This could have any number of impacts. It depends on what your business is. For many businesses, this is an internal thing, but it's largely not applicable reputationally. It can just depend. Marketing. Marketing and a lack of marketing. Number one thing that's going to come up most of the time is going to be a lack of market presence. So your competitors are putting out a bunch of ads. You're not putting out a bunch of ads. Your brand is less present in the market. One thing that you'll notice in insert your given country that has a lot of commercials, there are certain brands. If you think of hamburger or a cheeseburger, there's probably a company that has popped into your mind. If you think of a root beer, there's probably a type of carbonated beverage brand that has now popped into your mind. That's because they're doing commercials all the time. If I'm thinking about a certain type of drink that has a bunch of food coloring in it with someone in a glass container charging through a wall, you know which brand I just referenced. I know you do. If we're talking about someone who is very strapping in a shower, popping their muscles up while drenching themselves in body lotion, power, you know which commercial I just referenced. Brand dominance, brand presence is impacted when you lose marketing. So I'm going to just call this brand relevance, but you could call this whatever relevancy. You could call this whatever you want. So you've created this thing. You've having a rough idea what the impacts are. You have your functions. You've listed them. Whatever you make these functions to be, these are locked in. These are going to be the same functions you use for everything else. Go through this. So go through your impacts and everything else. Say to yourself, you know what? Are any of these two the same thing? Is there one of these where I might want to separate them? You know, admin, do I want admin to be admin and HR? Should I just make a separate HR function and go through that? Do I want these mixed together? You know, marketing and sales, do I want, do I want to separate my marketing into just, my brand management marketing campaigns and my do I want to have sales and then web sales? Do I want to separate those out so I have three? Do I want to put things together? Whatever. Figure out what is comfortable to you. The correct answer to this is whatever you, the organization, thinks in. So whatever way you view the business or the organization, that's what these should be. It shouldn't be something someone else gives to you. It should be whatever way you view it, because you're creating this map and these models and etc. around the way the business or the organization views itself. If someone else is telling you how to view something, it's not the way that you view it. It's not the point. So play with these a bit, figure that out. And then if you need to go through this and change this as necessary, change this as necessary. But keep in mind, once you've locked in these, the other sections of the BIA have to use the same, this column here needs to be the same. The impacts, whatever, but this is going to stay the same. So figure out how you want to move those, and that's pretty much it. Impact assessment is fairly quick to explain. This can be fairly involved to gather the information of. I just wrote stuff in. Figuring out how much you lose per day from something being out might be, you may have a chief operating officer that just knows this number. If you don't, fair enough. This may be a number that you have to go figure out by asking the operations department, and that might take a while. So sometimes you can just knock this out with a bunch of executives that know these numbers and understand this and how the business works. Sometimes this will take time to collect. It just depends. I can tell you from experience, with large organizations, if you get all of the executives in one room, you can knock this out in under 15 minutes. You explain it, they completely get it, stuff gets written down at high speed, and they know these numbers, they know exactly what they lose. They might not know a different department, they know their department. And these functions are probably the names of the C whatever O's. So your CFO, your Chief Financial Officer, finance department. Your COO, your operating officer, operations. Your CTO, technology officer, tech, IT. You'll have your C-suite, and it'll be pick the letters. Those are your functions, because the organization decided to make departments with chief officers of those departments. Those are their functions. They've already built them. You can just translate. If you're a smaller business, you might not have that. These might, if you're a sole proprietor or if you're someone who runs a very, very tight-knit crew, half of these might be one person. But there are still different functions of what they do. And if you end up expanding and having people take those tasks away from that person, knowing what these are and mapping them out to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to keep doing this. You are taking this piece, and you've defined what that is. Delegating that off now is now much easier because you've defined what that is. Anyways, impact assessment in general. Next, if we're doing this chronologically for what works in my brain, but you don't have to, you can do them in any order. I'm probably going to be going into timeline breakpoints.